What would you do if someone kicked you out of your own home, unjustly? Would you just walk away, or would you fight back? Imagine standing on your own porch, only to be told by a cop that you need to leave. Right now. No warning, no explanation. How would you react when the place where you're supposed to feel safest is suddenly taken from you? And here's the twist. What happens next isn't what you'd expect. In just 8 minutes, everything turns upside down. And the brutal revenge this woman serves is something you have to hear about. In this video, we're diving into a real story that's stranger than fiction. A police officer walks up to a black woman's front door, orders her to leave her own home, and forces her out, without cause, without justification. She's left standing on the sidewalk, humiliated and confused. But what happens next isn't just a simple story of injustice. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes revenge isn't loud or violent. It's smart, strategic, and comes when people least expect it. This woman didn't just sit back and accept what happened. No, within minutes, she had a plan, and the consequences that followed hit harder than anyone could have imagined. By the time you finish this video, you'll understand that not every act of revenge looks like what we see in the movies. This is a story about calculated payback, about turning humiliation into empowerment, and it carries a powerful message about how ordinary people can stand up for themselves when those in power abuse their authority. We'll walk through what really happened that day, step by step, why the officer showed up in the first place, what sparked the tension, and how the woman turned the situation around in just 8 minutes. Asterisk, why power can backfire on those who misuse it. Asterisk, the psychological strength it takes to keep calm and fight back smartly. Asterisk, how legal channels and public exposure can hit harder than any physical revenge. Asterisk, and finally, the officer's downfall. How actions taken in the heat of the moment led to permanent consequences. As we walk through the events step by step, you'll see why this case isn't as simple as it first seems. From the moment the officer steps onto her porch, to the chilling 8-minute countdown where she hatches her plan, every second matters. And just when the officer thinks he's won, the real game begins. How does she turn the tables? What does she do that leaves everyone, including the officer, stunned? And what happens to him in the end? Stick with us as we uncover every detail of this remarkable story, because what happens next will challenge your ideas about justice, power, and revenge. And by the end, you'll understand that true power isn't just about authority. It's about knowing when and how to fight back. Ready to dive in? Let's get started. Imagine this. You're sitting peacefully in your living room when suddenly a knock at the door shatters the quiet. It's a police officer, not with a friendly smile or polite request, but with a stern face, demanding you leave your home. Confusion clouds your mind. Why? What did I do? Yet, before you even get answers, you're being pushed out. No warning, no reason, no rights explained. Your neighbors peek out from their windows, silently judging, as if you're the criminal. But you're not. This is your house, your sanctuary, and now you're on the street, humiliated and powerless. The police officer's badge symbolizes authority, one that's supposed to protect people, not strip them of their dignity. However, in some cases, that badge becomes a weapon. It isn't just about enforcing the law. It becomes a tool for intimidation, sometimes influenced by biases, subtle or otherwise. The woman in this story experiences firsthand how authority can cross the line, how those entrusted with power can misuse it, leaving innocent people emotionally shattered. In this scenario, the officer forces the woman out without even checking the facts, whether she owns the property, whether she's supposed to be there. Imagine the weight of the officer's presence. It isn't just a random eviction, it feels personal. She's not being treated as a resident, but as someone unwelcome, as if she doesn't belong in her own home. It's not just an intrusion into her physical space. It's an attack on her identity and sense of security. The injustice is amplified by the fact that she's black. For many people of color, Encounters with law enforcement come with an extra layer of fear. There's a deep, historic narrative where authority often assumes guilt, where a simple misunderstanding can spiral out of control. The psychological impact in moments like this runs deep. It's not just about being thrown out. It's about the message it sends. You don't have power here. She's standing on the sidewalk now, stunned and seething, while the officer strides away. His job, in his mind, done. But she's not the type to walk away quietly. Something is brewing within her, a plan forming in her mind. Injustice has a way of sparking something deep in the soul. The humiliation she feels doesn't crush her. It sharpens her focus. She knows she has rights. She knows the officer was wrong. And in the next 8 minutes, the tides are going to shift. But this isn't going to be a loud confrontation. No, her revenge will be subtle, legal, and brutal. This incident touches on more than just the abuse of power. It's about resilience, how people find ways to fight back against systems that try to crush them. It shows that revenge isn't always about violence. It's about using the tools available: knowledge, law, and strategy. And sometimes that's what stings the most. The officer may have thought he won in that moment, but in truth, the real battle is just beginning. The moment the officer kicked the woman out of her own house, a series of consequences began to unfold, each one more profound than the last. Imagine the adrenaline coursing through her veins as she steps outside, feeling the weight of injustice pressing down. In that moment, it's not just about being physically removed. It's about the psychological effects of such a public humiliation. Her heart races, anger bubbles, and humiliation washes over her like cold water. With every passing second, she stands there, realizing that this situation is far from ordinary. This isn't just a dispute. It's a stark reminder of the power dynamics in play. For people of color, especially in encounters with law enforcement, there's often an unspoken fear rooted in the history of racial bias and abuse. This isn't a story isolated to her. It's a broader narrative where the badge represents not just authority but sometimes oppression. As she processes the event, thoughts race through her mind. How could this happen? What are her rights? With neighbors watching, she feels both vulnerable and enraged. The embarrassment is stinging, yet something deep inside her ignites. She can't let this go unanswered. She understands that the very system meant to protect her has failed. It's a moment where the scales of justice seem tipped, and she realizes that it's up to her to bring balance back. While the officer believes he has asserted control, she feels a flicker of defiance igniting within her. This is where the storytelling deepens. She begins to formulate a plan. What if she could turn the tables on him? What if the law could be used against those who misuse it? Her mind races, considering all the avenues available to her: complaints, media exposure, legal action. Each option unfolds like a different chapter in a book, full of suspense and potential. This moment of clarity is a powerful turning point. She knows that she holds the key to reclaiming her narrative. With every detail replayed in her mind, she strategizes her next moves, determined to turn her humiliation into empowerment. The clock is ticking, and every minute brings her closer to taking back control. It's a quiet storm brewing within her, one that will soon erupt, but not in anger. Rather, it will be a calculated response designed to expose the officer and the system he represents. As she stands outside her home, she's no longer just a victim. She's a woman on a mission. The officer may think he has won, but she knows that true power lies in resilience and the ability to adapt. This isn't just about revenge. It's about setting a precedent, making a statement that won't easily be forgotten. The more she thinks about her situation, the more determined she becomes. She realizes that while he may wear the uniform, she has something far more powerful: the truth. And the truth, as they say, can be a formidable weapon. With every heartbeat, she inches closer to her plan. It's a battle of wits, a clash of perspectives, and she's ready to bring the fight right back to the doorstep of the man who underestimated her. This moment of clarity solidifies her path, building the suspense for what's to come. She will show him, and everyone else, that the consequences of his actions will not just vanish into thin air. The story is far from over. It's only just beginning, and the stakes are higher than ever. As the initial shock of being kicked out fades, the woman begins to channel her humiliation into something far more potent: strategy. She knows that to fight back, she must be smart. This isn't a situation she can tackle with brute force or loud protests. Instead, she decides to gather evidence, creating a meticulous record of the incident. Each detail matters: the officer's badge number, the time of day, and even the names of her neighbors who witnessed the humiliation. She feels like a detective in her own story, piecing together the puzzle of injustice. With each note she takes, her anger transforms into determination. The feeling of powerlessness that once overwhelmed her slowly dissipates. She recalls the stories she's heard from others about how systemic issues can be challenged. People who stood up against wrongful actions and made their voices heard. In her mind, she imagines how she will share her experience, ensuring that her voice rings louder than the officer's authority. Research becomes her ally. She dives into the legal aspects surrounding her rights as a homeowner, the rules governing police conduct, and the channels available for complaints. She learns about others who fought similar battles, drawing inspiration from their stories. These are stories of resilience, people who turned their struggles into movements for change. The more she discovers, the more empowered she feels. She realizes that her situation is not unique. It is part of a larger pattern of injustice that many have faced. In the days that follow, she becomes a woman on a mission. She drafts a letter detailing the events and her experience, prepared to send it to the police department. She thinks about how her story can inspire others. Each sentence she writes carries the weight of her emotions: pain, anger, but also hope. She knows this is her moment to shine a light on what happened to her, to bring awareness to the misuse of power. Her pen becomes her weapon, and her words will pierce through the silence. But her actions aren't just about revenge. They're about reclaiming her narrative. As she contemplates her next steps, she considers reaching out to local media, sharing her story on social platforms. She visualizes the headlines: "Local woman fights back against police misconduct." She sees herself as a voice for the voiceless, ready to challenge the status quo and shed light on the issues that often go unspoken. Time passes, and with each day, her resolve strengthens. She becomes more than just a victim. She is a beacon of resistance. People around her begin to notice her transformation. Friends and family rally around her, offering support and encouragement. They too share their own experiences, creating a community of strength and solidarity. The more she talks about her experience, the more others feel empowered to share their stories. As she prepares for her next move, the suspense builds. Will the police department respond to her complaint? Will the media pick up her story? The tension hangs in the air like a storm about to break. Each day feels like a ticking clock, counting down to a moment that could change everything. The woman knows she's standing at a crossroads, one that could lead to justice or more silence. But she is determined to make her mark, to ensure that what happened to her is not forgotten. She's ready to turn her pain into power, ready to show the world that even in the face of injustice, one voice can ignite a change. With her complaint filed and her story slowly gaining traction, the woman realizes that she is not just fighting for herself. She is becoming a voice for many others who have faced similar injustices. As she begins to share her experience on social media, her words resonate with countless individuals. Messages flood in from people recounting their own encounters with police misconduct, feeling encouraged by her courage. Each comment acts like a spark, igniting a fire of activism around her story. The suspense builds as her posts catch the attention of local media outlets. A reporter reaches out, eager to cover her story. She can hardly believe it. This could be her chance to bring her fight into the public eye, to expose the officer's actions to a broader audience. Her heart races with a mix of excitement and fear. What if the police retaliate? What if she is met with backlash? But she quickly pushes those thoughts aside. This is her moment to stand tall. As the day of the interview approaches, she prepares herself. She goes over her notes, practicing how she will articulate her experience. She imagines sitting across from the reporter, feeling the weight of every word she says. She wants her story to resonate, to showcase the deep-seated issues that often remain hidden. In her mind, she sees herself as a representative of those silenced by fear, those who believe they have no power. The day finally arrives, and as she sits down for the interview, the room feels electric with tension. She shares her story with raw honesty, detailing the humiliation, the anger, and the determination that followed. The reporter listens intently, nodding as she speaks. With each word, she feels her confidence building. This is more than just a story about her. It's about making a change, raising awareness, and standing up against a system that too often allows abuse to flourish. When the story airs, the response is overwhelming. Viewers rally around her, posting supportive comments and sharing her story far and wide. Some even create hashtags to spread awareness about police misconduct. The community begins to mobilize, organizing protests and discussions about police reform, pushing for accountability. She watches in awe as her voice, once just a whisper of anger, transforms into a rallying cry for justice. But amidst the support, shadows loom. The officer who kicked her out is not silent. As the backlash against him grows, he starts to push back, claiming that his actions were justified. He spins a narrative designed to discredit her, suggesting that she was the one at fault. The media coverage begins to shift, and she feels the pressure mounting. Will her truth stand against his fabricated reality? The stakes rise as she braces herself for potential legal battles and confrontations. Each day becomes a delicate dance of maintaining public support while fending off attacks on her character. She feels the weight of responsibility growing heavier. The community that rallied behind her is counting on her to stay strong, to push through the adversity. She knows that this fight isn't just about her anymore. It's about holding a system accountable, about ensuring that no one else has to endure what she did. In moments of solitude, doubt creeps in. What if she loses? What if the narrative shifts and she's painted as the villain? But every time these thoughts threaten to overwhelm her, she recalls the faces of those who have shared their stories with her, those who have cheered her on from the sidelines. She draws strength from them, knowing that she is part of something larger than herself. This battle for justice has become a movement, and she is at its forefront, ready to face whatever comes next. As the tension between the woman and the police department escalates, she finds herself at a pivotal moment. With her story gaining more traction and the pressure mounting from both sides, she prepares for a public rally. This isn't just a chance to share her experience again. It's an opportunity to unite the community and showcase their collective strength. She envisions a crowd of supporters, friends, family, and strangers, coming together to demand justice. The anticipation sends shivers down her spine. Will they all show up? Will her message resonate? The night before the rally, she hardly sleeps. Her mind races with thoughts of what she wants to say, how she can inspire those who stand with her. She recalls the countless stories she has heard from others, people who have faced the same struggles. Their experiences fuel her determination. She knows she is not just fighting for herself. She is standing up for every voice that has been silenced. Each story she collected becomes a thread in the fabric of her own fight, creating a tapestry of resilience. On the day of the rally, she arrives early, feeling the weight of expectation hanging in the air. The park where they've gathered buzzes with energy, and as she looks out at the crowd, a mix of nerves and excitement courses through her. Faces of familiar supporters and new allies alike fill her with hope. They hold signs demanding justice, their messages echoing her own. The sight is powerful, and for a moment, she feels invincible. This is what it means to stand united. As the time for her speech approaches, she feels the adrenaline kick in. When it's finally her turn to speak, she steps up to the microphone, her heart pounding in her chest. The crowd falls silent, and all eyes are on her. She takes a deep breath and begins, pouring her heart out. She recounts her experience, weaving in the stories of others who have faced similar injustices. Her voice rises and falls with emotion, and she can see the crowd hanging onto her every word. The atmosphere is electric, filled with hope and anger. As she speaks about her fight against police misconduct, the crowd erupts into cheers. People shout phrases of solidarity, clapping and raising their fists in unity. She feels a surge of power in the air, and the sense of community is palpable. This moment feels monumental, like they are all part of something larger than themselves. The energy is intoxicating, and she draws strength from the people around her. But in the back of her mind, the stakes linger. She knows that the officer is likely watching, perhaps even plotting his next move. As she finishes her speech, she can't shake the feeling that the confrontation is far from over. The tension is thick, a reminder that this fight is not just about her. It's a battle against a system deeply ingrained in power dynamics. Suddenly, a commotion arises at the edge of the crowd. She turns to see a group of counter-protesters, faces angry and determined, holding signs that challenge her message. The atmosphere shifts as fear begins to creep in. But then something incredible happens. The crowd around her stands firm, chanting louder, their voices drowning out the dissenters. They are united, and their solidarity fuels her courage. As the counter-protesters start to retreat, she realizes that the community is willing to stand by her side, no matter the cost. The drama of the moment reinforces her resolve, and she knows they are all in this together. As the rally draws to a close, the woman feels a mix of relief and triumph. She has not only shared her story but ignited a movement. Together, they have sent a powerful message that cannot be ignored. The shadows of doubt linger, but she knows they have made a difference today. The fight for justice is far from over, but she is ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. With a community behind her, she feels unstoppable. The aftermath of the rally leaves a profound mark on the woman's life. As the dust settles, the media picks up on the story, amplifying her voice beyond her wildest dreams. News reports feature her narrative alongside images of the rally, capturing the emotions that erupted in that park. She starts receiving phone calls from activists, legal experts, and even lawmakers who want to discuss reform. This whirlwind of attention feels surreal. She's transformed from a victim into a symbol of resistance. But with this newfound attention comes a wave of scrutiny. The police department issues a statement defending their actions, insisting that the officer followed protocol. They downplay her experience, framing it as an isolated incident rather than a systemic issue. The woman feels the weight of their words like a heavy stone pressing down on her chest. The tension thickens as she realizes the fight is not just against one officer, but against an entire system that refuses to acknowledge its flaws. As discussions about police reform gain momentum, she receives an invitation to speak at a city council meeting. The thought of addressing local leaders sends waves of anxiety through her. Will they listen? Will they truly understand the impact of their decisions? Each moment leading up to the meeting feels like a tightening coil of suspense. She prepares tirelessly, rehearsing her points, hoping to strike the right balance between emotion and facts. On the day of the meeting, she enters the grand chamber filled with a mix of officials and concerned citizens. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation. When it's finally her turn to speak, she feels every eye upon her. Her heart races as she steps up to the podium. She recounts her experience once more, but this time, she emphasizes the need for systemic change. She talks about the stories of others who have faced similar injustices, weaving a narrative that is hard to ignore. As she speaks, she notices the faces of council members shifting. Some seem engaged, nodding along, while others appear skeptical, arms crossed tightly against their chests. The tension is palpable, each response fueling her determination. In this moment, she realizes that her words could influence real change, but there's a battle to be fought against entrenched interests. After her speech, she sits down, heart pounding, and the council members begin to discuss her points. The back and forth feels like a tug of war, with her at the center. Some council members express genuine concern and a willingness to look into the matter further, while others dismiss her claims, insisting that the department's procedures are sufficient. The drama unfolds as tension rises and voices escalate. She feels the weight of their resistance, but also the glimmer of hope ignited by those who stand with her. Then, just as the discussion begins to shift, a council member challenges her directly, questioning her motives and suggesting that she is merely seeking attention. The room falls silent, and she can feel all eyes on her once again. The stakes rise as her pulse quickens. Does she let this statement go unchallenged, or does she stand her ground? With courage swelling inside her, she responds with passion. She explains that this isn't about her. It's about everyone affected by similar injustices. She shares the stories of those who are afraid to speak out, who feel powerless in the face of authority. Her words hang in the air, heavy with emotion. As the meeting concludes, the council agrees to review police policies and hold a public forum to discuss potential reforms. While this isn't a definitive victory, it feels like a step forward. The woman leaves the meeting with a renewed sense of purpose. She knows that change won't happen overnight, but each conversation, each rally, and each challenge to the status quo is a brick laid in the foundation for justice. Amidst the uncertainty, she finds solace in the community that has rallied around her. They share updates, brainstorm strategies, and remain steadfast in their support.